Hello, my name is Chris Nystrom, and today I'm going to talk about AWS CloudTrail. So what is Amazon Web Services CloudTrail? Essentially, CloudTrail identifies which users and accounts called AWS APIs for services that support CloudTrail, and we'll talk about those services in a moment. It also provides you with the source IP address the calls were made from and when the calls occurred. And this is captured in a log file. With AWS CloudTrail, developers get an event feed for all of their resources on AWS, including calls made to the AWS APIs from their own applications and third-party software. CloudTrail can help with compliance, resource lifecycle tracking, operational troubleshooting, and security analysis. This new API logs calls from the following services: Elastic Compute Cloud, Elastic Block Store, Virtual Private Cloud, Relational Database Service, Identity and Access Management, Security Token Services, Redshift, and CloudTrail. And just like other AWS features, CloudTrail can be enabled from the AWS Management Console, and the log files are saved on Amazon's S3 Cloud Storage Service. This is a high-level architecture of AWS CloudTrail, and we can see at the top here we have the various interfaces, if you will, to interact with AWS. We have the AWS Management Console, SDK applications, as well as the AWS command line interface, and this is what I'll be using today to demonstrate the generation of logs to the S3 bucket by CloudTrail. And we can see here the services that are supported by CloudTrail. And then down below we can see that a log is generated for the API call, and this depicts that log. You can also, as an optional configuration parameter, be notified via SNS when a log is generated. So how do you configure CloudTrail? Well, within the AWS console, you'll create an S3 bucket. You'll attach a policy required by CloudTrail to the Amazon S3 bucket. And then you'll navigate to the CloudTrail console, click on Get Started, and that's where you set the parameters for the S3 bucket, an optional prefix, and some additional components such as global services, allowing you to capture information from global services such as IAM, AWS STS, optional SNS notification. And then once that's complete, once that configuration is complete, in about 15 minutes, CloudTrail starts publishing those log files that show the AWS API calls. So the first step is to create the S3 bucket. I created a bucket called Cloud Logging, and I also created a subfolder called Eclipse, which is my prefix. Next step is to attach the policy required by CloudTrail to the S3 bucket. So you'll essentially navigate to the AWS Management Console, go to the S3 console, select your bucket, click Permissions, click Edit Bucket Policy, and then you copy the following statement below, replacing the parameters that you see here in red with your account number, bucket name, log prefix. And once that's complete, you'll save that policy, and your bucket is now ready to capture the logs that are generated. The next step is to actually configure the CloudTrail trail. So you'll navigate to the CloudTrail console, click on Get Started, and here's where you can either create a new S3 bucket as part of the configuration or utilize an existing one. So I chose to use my existing cloud logging bucket with a subfolder prefix called Eclipse. I'm going to include global services, and I chose not to be notified by SNS. Click on Subscribe, and CloudTrail logging is now on. And you can edit, as you see here in the upper right, you can edit this configuration if you so desire. So if I wanted to publish to SNS at a later point, I could do that. So in about 15 minutes, CloudTrail starts publishing the log files that show the API calls made in your account. So the first example that we're going to run through is an EC2 command line interface call describing an EC2 image. So I'm going to bring up my command editor here. And I'm just going to type in my command EC2 describe images and the AMI 6534A. So now I've actually used the command line API that will be captured by CloudTrail. That call will be captured and a log file will be generated. So now let's navigate to the AWS console. You can see here that logging is turned on for CloudTrail. I'm going to navigate to my S3 bucket. Right now it's telling me the folder is empty, but in a couple of moments we'll see the first log generated from that describe images command that we just created. So I'm just going to refresh this screen. So here is our first log that's generated by the command that we input. You describe instances. And since that log has some account information, I've actually masked that out. And if we take a look at the slide, we can see that the log information includes information about the identity of the user, the account ID, the event time, the particular service that's being accessed, and then we have the event name, describe images here. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to run another command that will create an instance in EC2. So let's do that. This will generate our second log. Alright, so we send our second API call to run an instance within the EC2 service. And now if we go back to the management console, we should see that another log has been generated. So there's our second log. And again, because it has some proprietary information, I'll show you in the PowerPoint what that looks like. So here's our call to run that instance. The second log was generated, and we can see here that again it has information about the user and the account, as well as the service that's being called, and then the event name here is run instances. Our final example, so here's actually the EC2 instance that was run. So what we're going to do next is we're actually going to terminate the instance that we just created to demonstrate the capture of an API call from the AWS EC2 Management Console. So I'm actually going to go to the Management Console and terminate that instance. And then we'll see that the log has been generated from that interaction. So let's go here. From CloudTrail, I'm just going to navigate to EC2. We have one running instance. This is the one we just created through the CLI. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select that and terminate that. Okay. So while that's shutting down now, we'll go back to the Management Console. And we should see that a log is generated for that API call from the EC2 Management Console. Now we see a third and final log that was generated that represents the EC2 Management Console command to terminate the instance. So we can see that that instance is now terminated. So let's take a look at that log format in my slide deck. Okay, so we can see that the instance is terminated, the log file is generated, and we can see down here that the event name is terminate instances. Okay, representing that the capture of the EC2 Management Console API call to terminate the instance that we created in the previous step. So that completes the demonstration of CloudTrail. And again, CloudTrail allows the administrator to configure the capture of AWS API calls from the Management Console within AWS, from SDK calls, as well as from the command line interface, which we demonstrated today. Thank you very much.